Good morning. This is Uncle Sam, the personification of the United States, as many countries have personified themselves, such as the goddess Britannia in the United Kingdom. Now, many of these characters have counterparts who are interchangeable, and aside from minor differences, these remain largely the same character. For example, in fiction, the Hulk and She-Hulk. Now, let's take a look at Uncle Sam, and let's see his counterpart, Columbia, who was the original personification of the United States, and she was named after the explorer Christopher Columbus, as was Washington DC, which is the District of Columbia, and many cities throughout the United States, and even the South American country, the Republic of Colombia. You may recognize Columbia in the more familiar depiction of the Face of Columbia pictures. And now let's examine her and see what she's doing in this picture for Columbia Pictures. She is standing on a pedestal, holding a brilliant white torch, outstretched in one hand. Now, I thought, well, who does this look like? And this is the image of the Statue of Liberty, standing on a pedestal, outstretching a torch, and wearing a pointy crown. Now, Lady Liberty is actually a Roman goddess called Libertas, who was worshipped on the Roman Aventine Hill, and was very similar to the Roman sun god Sol Invictus, the unconquered sun. Now, back to the statue of Lady Liberty, and looking at her, I thought of another statue stood outside of a port, outstretching a flaming hand, and holding a torch, and wearing a pointy crown. And this is one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, called the Colossus of Rhodes. The statue is of the Titan sun god Helius. He wears a crown of sun rays, and holds the torch of light, which represents the sun. He is a Greek Titan god, and if we look across the sea to Egypt, there is a sun king god called Amun-Ra, and this equivocates to the sun god Helios as the name for Amun-Ra's city. The city where it's worshipped is called, in Greek, Heliopolis. And if we look for other equal gods, just east of Egypt, in the lands of Canaan and the Levant, modern-day Syria and Israel, we know of a divine being called Heliel. Now, the Hebrew word for the first part of his name, Hel, is derived from Helios, the god, the Greek god, meaning light, and El, which is the word for God used widely throughout the Middle East. And even today, in the modern religion of Islam, their god is called Allah, Al meaning the, and El meaning God. Now, this god Heliel, his name's translated into Latin, and is better known throughout the West as Lucifer and the Angel of Light, a character to appear in Christianity, an evil character. Now, back to the Colossus of Rhodes and the Titan Helios. In mythology, he has a sister called Selene, who is the goddess of the moon, and the Romans would know her as Luna, which is the current name for Earth's moon. And this brother and sister would exist as a duality between man and woman, and night and day, and the sun and the moon. Now, in the mythology, eventually Helios is overthrown by his nephew Zeus, in the tradition of the Greek gods always usurping the power of their fathers, just as earlier on Helios with his brother Kronos would depose their father Uranus. Now Zeus has deposed the Titans and his father Kronos, and he usurps their titles and their powers and exerts them onto his children. And the traits of Helios and his sister Selene can be seen transferred to the twin children of Zeus, Apollo and Artemis. Firstly, I'm going to talk about Artemis, who is known to the Romans as Diana, and she is the goddess of hunting, of animals, and the moon, and is always seen at night. She's depicted as a young, desirable woman with a bow and arrow, and usually accompanied by a deer. She is the embodiment of a strong, confident woman, and she's been resurrected in modern day pop culture as Wonder Woman, as Wonder Woman's real name is Diana. And more so in movies of the past 10 years that frequently recur a strong young female character hunting with a bow and arrow, mimicking the goddesses. And for example, you have Lara Croft, who is always out hunting and often uses a bow and arrow. You have Natalie Portman in that awful medieval film. You have Keira Knightley in King Arthur playing Guinevere, but using a bow and arrow, which in tradition Guinevere never used, but this is a reflection of Artemis. And the cream of the lot, Miss Katniss Everdeen in the Hunger Games. And if she's not the goddess Artemis, then I don't know what is. But anyway, back to the god Apollo. And Apollo is a perpetual youthful man riding the chariot of the sun across the sky, master of the light of day, and he has replaced Helius. And he was very popular in Greece and very popular throughout the Roman Empire. And the vanity of these emperors would lead them to equate themselves with him, especially the Emperor Constantine, where in Constantinople he built a column with himself, the statue on the top, dressed as Apollo, and bang in the centre of Rome he had his own Colossus statue of himself as Apollo, dressed in the traditional way with a crown of outstretched sun rays, his arms stretched out, master of all he sees. And this Colossus of himself, of Constantine, is very similar to the Colossus of Rhodes. Now, but at this point, the Roman Empire was fractured, and the division of many gods reflected the division of the many competing emperors and the fractured empire. Constantine himself had already defeated 3 rivals, and so to unify the empire once more, to keep it strong together, he needed a new religion, and to do away with the old pantheon of many gods, as one god in heaven is equal to one emperor over the Romans and the known world. And so there was a new incarnation of the sun god, one god for one Roman Empire, and he would be a pro-Roman god who would render unto Caesar what is rightfully Caesar's. And as the sun made Apollo master of the sky, a halo of sun rays would make this god master of heaven. And the name of this god was Jesus Christ. Thanks for listening.